Pittsburgh Pirates made their first big move of the offseason on Tuesday night. And on Wednesday night, let's talk about it.
You are Locked On Pirates, your daily Pittsburgh Pirates podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome back, everybody, to the Locked On Pirates podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network. My name is Ethan Smith. You can find me on Twitter at MVP_Ethan or at Locked On Pirates for all of your news, analysis, opinions, and reactions to everything going on in the world of the Pittsburgh Pirates from a lifelong fan to lifelong fans just like you. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make sure you go check out FanDuel right now every NFL Sunday or Saturday or Wednesday or Monday or Thursday or whatever day they're playing anymore to make sure that you bet on all their live games and you can win $150 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 does indeed win. And welcome back to the show, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in as you always do on audio or on YouTube. If you are on YouTube, make sure you hit the subscribe button, like, comment, and turn on the notification bell so you know when this show is, of course, dropping. And the Pirates did, as I mentioned in the intro, make their first kind of big move of this offseason. And big, I think, could be a word that a lot of people immediately tune into this and say, why are you saying this is a big move? And as far as the player goes, it's not like a blockbuster that this happened. But Spencer Horwitz is a Pittsburgh Pirate. And how did we get here? How did we get to this point? Well, the Cleveland Guardians took it upon themselves to acquire Horwitz in a trade for Andrés Giménez, who was sent, of course, to the Toronto Blue Jays. And then, Horwitz, who is primarily a first baseman, which we'll get into in a minute, didn't really have a path at all to play in Cleveland. You're looking at Kyle Manzardo. You're looking at Josh Naylor, who I've also hinted as a potential trade candidate just for baseball in general, not for the Pirates, but I'd obviously love a Josh Naylor type. But there really was no path. So the Pirates swoop in. They get Horwitz to what I would assume play first base. That would be my assumption as to what Horwitz's role on this team would be. Pretty clear cut to the chase there on that. And the trade was interesting. It saw Michael Kennedy, it saw Josh Hartle, and it saw Luis Ortiz. Now, Luis Ortiz, I think, was the one that really, really got people kind of riled up a little bit. And we'll touch on that in the second segment today. But from just a player standpoint, Spencer Horwitz is a player that a lot of people might not really know too much about unless you're all eyes on the sport, which is what I'm here for. But for a guy like Spencer Horwitz, this is a pretty solid pickup, if you ask me. We'll just go ahead and jump right into that. And I think that this is not a terrible move at all for this team whatsoever. The Pirates have put an onus, they have put an emphasis on wanting to trade pitching for offense in this offseason, which will be a big talking point tomorrow based off of some things that we heard today throughout the day that I wanted to kind of let simmer a little bit before I talk to them likely tomorrow afternoon or talk about them tomorrow afternoon. But Horwitz is fresh, 27 years old, 367 at-bats in his career, 13 home runs, 47 RBIs, the OPS at a 783. Those are numbers that play. Those are numbers that are going to absolutely play for Spencer Horwitz. Now, a lot left to be desired as far as the power is concerned. You heard me mention the home run totals there. Of course, this is including some of his limited stint that he saw in Toronto in 2023, where he got 39 at-bats. 2024, though, was a good year for him. I mean, he slashed 265, 357, and 433 with a 790 OPS. So this is a guy that's going to hit the baseball. He's going to bring some offense to that first baseman position that the Pirates have desperately been seeking for a while now. I mean, if you look at what the Pirates have acquired, let alone in free agency and in the offseason, since I've been the host of this show, since late in 2020, you obviously saw Josh Bell exit, which left a gap at that first base position. And then you saw guys like Rowdy Tellez, Ji-Man Choi, Michael Chavis, Carlos Santana. So it hasn't exactly been a murderer's row of players that the Pirates have acquired, and Horwitz isn't either. But I do think it's okay to look at this move and say the Pirates filled a position of need here. That is exactly what this deal does for them, is acquiring a player like this in Horwitz. They didn't really, to me, overspend, but again, we'll get to that later. I don't want to go all over the place here. But Ben Cherington spoke on it on MLB.com. Spencer has been a consistently strong offensive performer throughout his pro career, including his first extended major league experience this season. As a left-handed hitting first baseman with on-base skill, we believe he's a strong fit for our lineup and team. I think Ben Cherington hit that right on the nail right on the head with all of that. You look at what he's going to bring to this team. He's going to be a guy that's going to get on base. He has that left-handed swing, and the Pirates desperately, and this is arguably the biggest part of this, desperately needed somebody that can hit right-handed pitching. That is one of the biggest points that I can make this offseason when they are in search of offense, is that they need to find guys that are going to hit right-handed pitching. They have struggled against right-handers for years. It has been a massive problem with this team, to the point where it's kind of been their biggest detriment at times, is that they just flat out cannot hit right-handed pitching. And you look at what Horwitz did last year, against right-handers, 285, 380, 484, 864. Folks, you'll take that. Based off of what we as fans and the team have seen from the first base position as of late, those numbers fly off the page. Now, they're not elite numbers. They're not numbers that suggest that you're getting a guy like Bryce Harper or getting a Pete Alonso or any other big name first baseman, but you're getting a guy that's valuable. You're getting a guy that's controllable, and you're getting a guy that's pretty good for what you were looking for at this position. I do think I would have liked them to go after a left-hander with a little more pop, but there is some there, I think. I mean, I think Horwitz has a chance to be a guy that can do that. And you look at what he's been able to do. He played second base last year too, so if you do maybe want to even platoon him with Nick Gonzalez at second base as a left-handed hitter, you could even flirt with that idea. He's very flexible between those two positions. He could play first, he could play second, and ultimately, I think what this really means is now you kind of have a security blanket, and a good one at that, for if you are moving Brian Reynolds over to first base, because now you're not asking Brian Reynolds to be that guy. Like, he doesn't have to be the starting first baseman every day and learn the position on the fly in the middle of the season and play it every single day. You could play Brian Reynolds against left-handed pitching, and you can play Horwitz against righties, and then just let Reynolds still play left field against those right-handed pitchers. These are all things that are adding up to say that once you insert Spencer Horwitz into this lineup, it fixes some things. And if he can get on base and be a guy that bats 5th, 6th, or 7th in that area and kind of get those guys from the top of the order like O'Neal Cruz, Brian Reynolds, the guys like Joey Bart even that are on base to score, folks, that's a major factor in what this team couldn't do last year. They couldn't find ways to score with runners in scoring position because they just didn't really have any options past that top group. Spencer Horwitz can be a guy that you slot in like an Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, who, mind you, was teammates with Horwitz at a time last year before he was traded from the Toronto Blue Jays to the Pittsburgh Pirates. Had some nice things to say as well. And you're also looking at the little nugget that the new hitting coach, Matt Haig, has also had his stamp written all over Horwitz throughout his career, having coached him throughout a multitude of minor league systems, a multitude of minor league teams and minor league seasons. So 27-year-old left-handed on-base machine kind of is what I would consider with Horwitz. I'm not going to be upset about that part. I'm not really going to be upset either about what they gave up for him. And I'm going to tell you why in just a minute. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make sure you head to FanDuel.com right now to check out everything FanDuel has to offer, because you can get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. You can also bet on the NBA, the NHL, college basketball, college football, even MLB futures. That's FanDuel.com, and never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL and an official sponsor of the Locked On Podcast Network. And welcome back, everybody, to the Locked On Pirates podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network. After listening to this show tonight, make sure you listen to Locked On MLB with Paul Francis Sullivan. He'll be covering everything going on in the world of Major League Baseball throughout the entire offseason. He's already hit on Juan Soto a good bit. He's going to be hitting on Max Fried. He's going to be hitting on literally everything. So if you want to hear about all of the happenings going on in Major League Baseball's offseason, make sure you go check out Sully over at Locked On MLB, Locked On MLB's flagship show. So we talked at the beginning about Spencer Horwitz and what he is as a player. Now, hopefully you're getting that upside. Hopefully you're getting that power upside. Hopefully that on base stays the same. And hopefully he's just an offensive contributor at the first base position. Defensively, I think he'll be just fine. The versatility at second base, I think, allows him to be just fine at that position as well. The biggest thing that came out of this, though, as far as fans' reactions to this and how this all came about, was the way that it happened. It was a trade, obviously. And I kind of highlighted and hinted at it already that the Pirates moved on from Michael Kennedy, Josh Hartle, and Luis Ortiz. 3 pitchers. Josh Hartle, I'm not going to get all amped up about, because, I mean, the guy literally just got drafted. So I'm not going to get all amped up about that one. Michael Kennedy, same deal, 17th ranked prospect, depending on where you look, but on MLB prospects, he was 17th. So, okay, yeah. The highlight for the Cleveland Guardians was Luis Ortiz. And that was the name, I think, that brought out a lot of the outrage that we were seeing from fans here in Pittsburgh is, hey, what are we doing here? Luis Ortiz just had a really good season in 2024. Why are we moving on from him for Spencer Horwitz? And my answer to that would be that I think we as Pirates fans, and this is just fans of any team really, tend to overvalue our players. I mean, we all remember the old joke and the old adage about the Yankees trying to trade for every good player in baseball with Miguel Andujar and Clint Frazier. I mean, those guys were very highly valued by the Yankees, not so much by other teams. Luis Ortiz, yes, did have a very good season in 2024. He was a pleasant surprise, took a very massive step forward from what he was showing us in 2023. Kind of got back to his 2022 form and then some. And I can understand being a little upset about this, because why would they move on from Luis Ortiz, who's ingrained in this rotation? Well, folks, let's not forget that the Pirates have Paul Skeens, Jared Jones, Mitch Keller, and Bailey Falter. And after that, you got some guys that are legit as well. Johan Oviedo looks like he's going to be on the fast track to coming back from Tommy John in 25. We all remember how much we loved Oviedo in 23. You look at Bubba Chandler, who has a real shot to be on this team next year. A real shot. Then you look at Mike Burrows, another player that a lot of people, including myself, have highly touted that could be a rotational piece. Then you look at, after that even, Anthony Solometto could be a guy that you look at into adding into this rotation, or the Pirates go out and sign a vet starter, which we have seen them do in every offseason since I started hosting this show. So it wouldn't be out of the ordinary to see them go out and go get a vet starter to just kind of ease in a Bubba Chandler or ease back a Johan Oviedo. And I'll say this, I just think Luis Ortiz is an expendable player. He's a replaceable player. He's a good player when he's playing his best and pitching his best, but I'm not going to act like we just lost Paul Skeens here when the Pirates and Ben Cherington, in doing this deal, their first big move of the offseason, did exactly what they said they were going to do at the offset of the offseason, which was move on from some of this pitching in favor of bats, because that is what we have all been preaching for. That is what we as fans have absolutely wanted them to do this offseason, is use some of this pitching that you have and go get some offensive players. Go get some guys that can look the part at the plate, especially when you're bringing in a pretty much entirely new regime as far as the hitting coaches are concerned. You moved on from Andy Haynes. Now you're going to hopefully not stop here with Horwitz and go get some corner outfield help as well. And you traded Luis Ortiz, Michael Kennedy, and Josh Hartle. I don't think this is a fleece by any means. I don't think this is a fleece by either side. I think this was a trade between two Major League Baseball teams recognizing that they need help in different areas and that each team was a fit for those areas. The Guardians get Spencer Horwitz. The Pirates need a first baseman and a left-handed hitter who can destroy right-handed pitching and get on base. They find it in Spencer Horwitz. The Cleveland Guardians, on the other hand, looking to bolster that rotation again. They can slot Luis Ortiz in the back end of that rotation or use him, as we saw him used in 2024, as a long reliever in a already strong bullpen. And that's what they're doing. They're just further bolstering something that they saw as a need, while the Pittsburgh Pirates, on the other hand, are filling one by getting Spencer Horwitz to play first base. So I do know, again, that it is frustrating to see the Pirates move on from Luis Ortiz. But when you have needs, and those needs can't really be met in free agency under the restrictions that are placed on the team by the owner himself, as far as spending money and the restrictions among baseball, as far as spending money, then you go out and you get flexible. And the word that I've thrown at you guys all offseason in the limited time that I was here over the past couple weeks is creativity. This was a creative move by the Pittsburgh Pirates because they see Spencer Horwitz get traded from the Toronto Blue Jays to the Cleveland Guardians. And they say, that's a guy that I think we could use here. And apparently has been a guy that they've liked for years and have wanted to acquire from Toronto for quite some time. And you didn't give up a king's ransom to get it. I don't think that we need to act like Luis Ortiz, Michael Kennedy, and Josh Hartle is a king's ransom. Because then if they trade Thomas Harrington, folks, I don't know what you're going to do. I don't know what that side of the fan base would do if they move on from a Thomas Harrington. Or, based off the rumors we'll talk about tomorrow, those players as well, but I'm not going to talk about that too much. But I like this deal. I just really do. I find it hard not to, because of the boxes that Horwitz checks at first base. And I could see, just to throw a name, if they gave up a Thomas Harrington to get this guy, then I would be like, yeah, that might have been a little much. But even then, folks, these prospects are unknown commodities. The only known commodity prospects the Pirates have had over the past calendar year have been, to me, Termar Johnson, Bubba Chandler, and Paul Skeens. Jared Jones was even somewhat of an unknown commodity going into 2024, albeit he won a spot in the rotation out of spring training and proved that he was a known commodity. But we didn't really know. We didn't know what he was going to be like. So, in reality, the Pirates filled a position of need here with Spencer Horwitz and traded away 2 prospect pitchers that were not in their first tier of their prospects whatsoever. And a pitcher in Luis Ortiz that, again, I loved what Luis Ortiz showed us, in 2024, but he's an expendable player. He is a guy that you could replace, as I'm recording this, with a veteran starter and probably feel okay about it. Or replace him eventually with a Johan Oviedo or a Bubba Chandler or an Anthony Solometto or a Mike Burrows. The Pirates have the flexibility with the pitching, and that's why they made a move like this, because they're sensing now that, okay, you have a position of need at first base. You don't like what you see in the free agent market or can't afford it? Okay, let's go get Spencer Horwitz and fill that position. He's your guy now. Maybe more in a platoon role, obviously, with Brian Reynolds, as I hinted at before, but you bring him in, and what's the worst that can happen? It doesn't work. But at least they're trying. That's the thing that I think is the biggest note here, is who would you have rather had, Anthony Rizzo or Spencer Horwitz? I think I know the answer to that one. To end today's show, though, we are going to talk a little bit about some of these rumors that I'm seeing, avoiding what we're going to be talking about on tomorrow's show, which is going to be that Pittsburgh Post-Gazette article that came out that has a lot of people going crazy. But we're going to talk about some other things as well that I think should be on your radar next on Locked On Pirates. And everydayers and everybody alike, welcome to the final part of today's episode of Locked On Pirates here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team, your Pittsburgh Pirates, all the time. And yeah, other rumors to touch on right now. Some of them are just going to be the ones that I've manufactured in my head. We obviously talked about the Red Sox yesterday. I do think the Horwitz acquisition obviously will shut down my idea of getting Tristan Casas. There would be kind of no point really to do that anymore. So that's done. But there are other players there that I still like. I still mentioned Wilyer Abreu. I still think the Pirates could be a trade partner with the Boston Red Sox as far as their pitching is concerned, even after Boston gets Garrett Crochet. So we'll kind of see what happens there. As far as other things, again, we're going to talk about all that stuff that was posted on the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette by Noah Hiles and Andrew Destin on tomorrow's show in depth about why I have feelings about it and everybody has feelings about it. Some other things that we've seen, obviously, monitoring all over baseball. Pirates have reportedly been in the catcher market a little bit. See what that kind of has to do with anything. I don't really know if it does or not. Pirates have been selecting in the minor league portion of the Rule 5 draft. I don't believe that they got anybody in the major league side. I don't think they needed to. And absolutely they did. There are a lot of 40-man spots open, by the way. A lot. So fully expect Ben Cherington to continue to be busy. And I think that's the biggest thing. There's still a lot of valuable stuff out there via trade or via free agency. I mean, corner outfield, I think, is where most people, including myself, are going to be on the lookout now, because to me, that is also a massive need, because if you go into the season next year, it would be probably either Nick York, Billy Cook, or Joshua Palacios in right field, or a Jack Sawinski. And with that being said, I don't want the Pirates to just completely dismiss those players whatsoever. I do think they could be valuable, and they did give up decent stuff to get Billy Cook and Nick York. I mean, Quinn Priester went to Boston to get Nick York. So the Pirates are obviously going to want to see what those guys can offer, but I do think you need to at least bring somebody in, because O'Neal Cruz is going to be your center fielder. If you're going to have Brian Reynolds playing first base occasionally, you're going to want somebody out there as well. So that's something that I would monitor through the coming days and weeks, is how the Pirates do attack getting a corner outfielder or two. I think, again, I keep mentioning a veteran starter. I think that's something you could absolutely see from this team. They've done it before in the past. They'll do it again. I see no downside to getting a veteran starter in this rotation just to have an innings ear while they wait for a guy like Bubba Chandler or Johan Oviedo or any number of those guys that I mentioned earlier. Another fun one here that I actually like that's not a rumor. Axio Plaz, the catcher / first baseman, moved into the top 30 after the trade, Michael Kennedy being traded away. So kind of cool there to see. I like Plaz a lot. I think he could end up being a sneaky good player in a few years. Not right now, obviously. But, you're looking at a lot of things that have been going on here. Max Fried obviously signed another massive contract, the largest for a left-handed pitcher in MLB history. You're looking at Alex Bregman, Pete Alonso. There's a lot of big stuff still available and out there right now, folks. And for the Pittsburgh Pirates, obviously you take a step down from the Pete Alonsos and the Bregmans and the Alonsos of the world. But I don't want everybody to think that there's just nothing available to Ben Cherington in this front office. There absolutely is. Spencer Horwitz was one of them. They go out and find him. They go and make a trade for it. As you heard me express, I don't think they gave up a whole lot to get him to fill a position of need. And that's what I think we want to see them do, is make that concerted effort to fill these positions of need. You need a corner outfielder. You needed a first baseman. You got that. You haven't gotten the outfielder yet. You might want to see him go to the bullpen a little bit. You already saw them kind of do that. Let me remind myself of his name real quick, but he came from the Miami Marlins. Elvis Alvarado. Excuse me. So maybe a guy that shocks people. We don't know. But that was bullpen depth for what you see. Now, you consider all of this and you say, okay, winter meetings are here. They've happened for the most part. There's time. It's the middle of December, folks. They have until March, April to figure this all out. And right now, adding Spencer Horwitz, I feel pretty good right now. I think the team got better in one swift move, trading for him. And other rumors will continue to surface, like the one that we saw in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette about some potential of more pitching moving and names that a lot of us, I don't think, really expected to be moved. But we'll talk about that on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Pirates. Folks, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Locked On Pirates here on the Locked On Podcast Network. My name is Ethan Smith. You can find me on Twitter at MVP_Ethan or at Locked On Pirates. You can find this show on YouTube and all of your audio platforms. It is free and available to you. So, yeah, do that. It's a very fun little vibe we got going on over here in the middle of winter. Fun little ending to today's show. When I went into work this morning, it was raining, and then I left and it was snowing. So I'm getting the full welcome as a Georgia boy, getting the full welcome to a Pennsylvania winter thus far. Folks, thank you so much. We'll see you tomorrow afternoon / evening to talk all about that. Till then, see you on the flip side.